So 2026 is starting, and this might be the year that you take a look at competitive shooting. Hands down, the #1 question that I get asked in the comments is, which competition gun should I get, or some variation of that with like X or Y competition gun. So here's my kind of perspective on the state of play in the three kind of largest divisions in competitive shooting right now. That's going to be USPSA Carry Optics, IDPA Carry Optics, and USPSA Limited Optics. And at the end, I'll even talk about crossover guns, guns that work in IDPA Carry Optics and work in USPSA. Now, with any of these kinds of videos, please remember that the rule books do change on a nearly annual basis. So there may be new equipment things if you're watching this not in 2026. Just be sure and check the rule books to make sure nothing has changed. And similarly, if you're watching this and you're a seasoned competitor, I'm asking you to help me out in the comments section. Guys, there's going to be a lot of questions that pop up, and guys who've been around this for a while, you can wade in on this. There's really no magic here. You're probably going to say the same stuff that I would say to these folks anyway, but just help me give these people the information they need to make good choices. So I'm going to talk about kind of the meta for each division, and I don't mean that as it has a competitive advantage necessarily, but like the most common gun in a given division, simply because that means if you only have one gun and your gun breaks at the match, or your optic breaks on your gun, which is the more common scenario, then you can plug in with somebody else who likely has the same gun, shares the same holsters, whatever. You have a built-in backup gun if your gun goes down at a match. And if you're somebody who's shooting travel matches, going halfway across the country, you probably should have two guns before you start spending that kind of money. Ask me how I learned that lesson.
Well, that sucks. Oh, come on.
And another thing I just have to put on the table before we wade into this, talking about which gun is going to win the match is like talking about, like, if you take the, reserve player in the NBA off the bench and put him in the shoes of the star player, is he going to all of a sudden start putting up stats like the star player? Absolutely not. The shoes are just something that helps the player put their skill on display. The guns are going to be absolutely like that. There is probably a little bit more you can lay at the guns rather than just, the shoes, but at the same time, the analogy generally holds, because dudes have been winning championships with guns that were not designed for that division for forever. Before we wade into it, my last little snippet is that if you're curious about a gun, go and start shooting matches with what you have now, and you'll meet people who have that gun and they'll let you shoot it. They may even let you shoot a match with it because they have backups. It's really good to have friends who are competitive shooters. They have really cool stuff. So let's get started with IDPA Carry Optics. And what IDPA Carry Optics is 45 ounces with a magazine and an optic, must fit in the IDPA box, must use if you're using a magwell, a tactical style magwell, and basically ports and comps are allowed. So from the try-hard folks at the IDPA matches I see, and this is going to be incredibly regional in Texas, everybody loves staccatos because Texas, but also Staccato XCs are incredible. But the Staccato XC is kind of the gun that you see in a lot of people's holster at the match when they're trying hard. A 2011 is like a great platform for competitive shooting because they're very easy to work on as a high burn gun. Like, they're incredibly simple. Like, CZs are significantly more difficult to deal with when you get into, the nuts and bolts of how the actions go together. So that's nice for a top-end gun, but you pay an absolute premium for them because you can generally buy 2 or more CZs for what a mid-tier 2011 is going to cost. But you don't have to have the XC. The XC is just kind of the ultimate form, if you want to call it that. But realistically, there are other guns you can check out. Like, this is the Fusion Firearms XP Comp, which is a Glock Mag XC. I'll have a review on this on the channel here real soon, so subscribe if you want to see that. But this gun sells for less than half of what the XC sells for. Shooting experience is remarkably similar. Trigger's not going to be quite as nice out of the box. You're going to have to spruce that up. But generally speaking, this gun has been pretty awesome. But if you're curious about this gun, really do check out the review. I should have it in a week or two because there's some stuff you're going to want to know about it. But there's other stuff in the market as well. Kimber just released their 2K11 comp. This is, a nice out-of-the-box solution, about half the price of the XC, and pretty nice shooting gun, very gentle. It's a little less snappy than the XC, which is kind of like a faster feeling gun, but this is more gentle, but it also, you know, has a little bit more muzzle climb because the comp's not quite as robust as it is on the XC, which also has a barrel weight at the front. And of course, another option could be like the Bull Armory Tac Pros with the ported barrels. Ported barrels are a great option for IDPA as well. I shot several major matches with my 5-inch version of the Bull Armory XC. I just love the way the stainless one looks, so I'm showing it to you. But those are all really good options for like the meta of what IDPA Carry Optics is. Now here's the fun part. You don't have to have a ported and comped gun to win at IDPA Carry Optics. And the reason I know that is the guy who won IDPA Carry Optics last year was shooting an aluminum frame Wilson Combat that didn't have ports or comps. His name's Austin Prue, which is a really lame last name. He sounds Canadian, but he's a really cool guy, not Canadian. Nothing against Canadians. But he makes it happen without any of those go fast bells and whistles, so there's that. Jumping over into USPSA Carry Optics, which has a completely different rule set for the division. It's USPSA kind of went first on what Carry Optics was, but I think IDPA kind of got it more right. USPSA took the rules of their production division and kind of bolted an optic onto it, so like it's not conceived around like really cool guns, it's conceived around production guns, which are nice guns, but not necessarily like all the go fast stuff. So it's basically built around double action, single action, heavy guns. You can be up to 59 ounces, which is stupid, but generally the Shadow 2 far and away is the most common gun you're gonna see in USPSA Carry Optics. Shadow 2s are cool guns that don't cost a ton of money. They're kind of, you know, mid-price guns. You can get them in the low 4 figures into, you know, 1,500 or so. And Shadow 2s are really nice. Like, they've got really good ergonomics. The beaver tail comes to a nice taper, sits the gun in your hand. They're incredibly accurate guns. The double action, single action triggers out of the box have gotten better in recent years, and durability has improved to kind of what they were when they first came out. They were cracking frames and stuff like that. It used to be really hard on slide stops and trigger return springs, but that's gotten better with time. So the Shadow 2 is kind of the number one, but the Shadow 2 isn't my number one pick in that division. My number one pick would actually be the Tanfoglio Stockmaster Extreme. And the reason I say that is fewfold, and I've got a video on this gun. You can watch it. I've got videos on pretty much all these guns at this point. But the Stockmaster Extreme does a couple things. Number one, the trigger out of the box is going to be better, both single and double, than the Shadow 2. And you pay for it because the gun is, you know, 30% more than the Shadow 2. It's got a nicer barrel, bull barrel. The accuracy, this is actually one of the better, more accurate guns that I have, including top end 2011 pieces. This gun is stupid accurate. The bull barrel's fantastic. It's got a really good trigger out of the box. Also takes grips, so you can get the grips how you like them. Oh, by the way, LOK Grips, code HUMMBLE. But the number one reason I really prefer the Tanfoglio is I think the ergonomics are even better than the CZ frames. If you're a big-handed guy, which I am, there's more real estate to get your support hand behind the gun on the Tanfoglio gun. So I like the Tanfoglios better. However, they have basically one application, and that's going to be USPSA, because these won't, you know, work in IDPA unless you go for kind of the fancier ones. You don't have to have a double single gun. The striker guns are going to be awesome. The lightweight striker guns are good. You're just going to have to work a little bit harder with it. I got my M card in USPSA Carry Optics shooting a Glock 34 Gen 5, so it's absolutely possible. But the Canik Rival S is a really great option. They've put these things on absolute sale. I saw them during like the holidays as low as like $700 or something when they were on sale, which is absolutely nutty considering this is a hard chrome slide, just like the Tanfoglio. Hard chrome is the, you know, best weapons finish. It's the hardest. It's got the best corrosion resistance. Just looks really cool. Shines in the sunlight. It's great. But the Rival S is a good gun as well. It's inexpensive, but it weighs, you know, a fair amount. It's got a pretty good balance to it. It's a great gun. Another option that is pretty strong that I like a lot is the Walter PDP SF, the steel frame Walter. It's very similar to the Rival. It's a little bit finer in like you play with it, and the, you know, trigger's just a little bit nicer. Everything feels just a little bit nicer, but you pay for it because the gun is, you know, 2x the price approximately. But any of the polymer frame guns are honestly going to be fine. If you got one of those, you're really squared away. There's good. I'll focus on your skills, not to worry about it too much. Now, jumping into the world of USPSA limited optics, which I My personal theory is that like all of the carry optics and limited optic shooters are just going to kind of come together in limited optics, because there's really not a point to have those divisions separated. They're basically the same guns using the same length magazines, the 140mm magazines, and they're both minor only, so the game is effectively the same. But probably the number one gun that I see at USPSA limited optics is going to be the Masterpiece Arms DS9. And the DS9 is a great gun. It is a well-made 2011, kind of built to a competition set. And it's, you know, kind of pricey. It's going to be north of $3 when you look at these things. You can find a lot of them used because there's so many of them in circulation, but you know, they come really well set up. This is actually the IDPA version of the gun. So if you swap the mag well, this gun could be legal for IDPA as well. But generally this gun is going to be kind of the emblem for a 2011 pistol. You know, it can be a 5-inch, can be a commander pistol, just based on your preference. And kind of the lore there is the 5-inch gun has a longer stroke, so it's got more weight out front, so it's going to probably want to dip a little bit more, but it's going to feel softer in recoil. And then the commander is going to be more sudden in recoil. It has a shorter stroke, so it's going to feel faster, and it has less weight, so it's not going to dip quite as much. I deal better with the 5 inches just because that's what I'm used to. But it doesn't necessarily need to be a 2011 pistol. The Walter PDP-SF with this magwell would be a great limited optics gun. The Canik Rival S with this magwell would also be a great limited optics gun. Any gun with a magwell is going to work great in limited optics. That's like the big difference between carry optics and limited optics, is single action triggers and magwells. But other kind of less costly options than the Masterpiece Arms, and I realize that some of these are still pretty spendy, but the new Staccato HD P4.5 is a 4.5-inch gun. It's got a sight block at the front. I actually really like how this gun shoots. It's fantastic, and it works great with Mech-Gar magazines, which means that Mech-Gar Glock mags, those are arguably the best 140mm magazine in USPSA. The Competitive Shooting Resource Group has taken those to a new level, but this gun would take it, and it still gets a pretty good single action trigger. Like honestly, you wouldn't need to work on it. It's just fine. And they're honestly really great guns for the money that they're asking for them. They're pretty robust, allegedly. I haven't run mine to high rounds, but 10.8 Performance has taken his well past 10,000 rounds. His P4, not his P45. Really good guns. Another option is Bull Armory. The Bull Armory Blaze is a little bit less money than the Masterpiece Arms, not on the 2011 magazine ecosystem if that's important to you, but this kind of comes set up really well with shielded safeties. It's got no grip safety, which is nice, and it's, you know, got a bonkers trigger out of the box. It takes its own kind of para style mags, which are nice, but the Blaze is a fantastic option. The Kimber 2K11 is honestly pretty good, specifically the ones with the MJD grips. They're really great. The MJD grips are fantastic. Like if you've watched much of my videos, you know I'm a huge fan of grips. I think grips are more important than triggers generally, because if you get the trigger kind of good enough, the grip and its ability to keep the gun from moving around is going to take you the rest of the way there. It's easier to shoot a gun with kind of an okay trigger and a great grip versus a gun with a crappy grip and a great trigger. I would take the better grip all day. And the MJD grips that come on the Kimber guns are great. Plus the Kimbers have an external extractor. So like this is probably gonna be the easiest 2011, the least fussy 2011 that you can deal with, because most of the issues 2011s get into are gonna deal with magazines or the extractor. This takes the extractor bit out of play. One thing to be aware of, you can watch all the videos on 2K11, I just made a playlist on them, is that the magazines on these will not take MBX mags. So if you go this direction, MBX mags do not work in the 2K11. Now, what are some good options that flex between both games? We'll start at kind of the top end price point. I mean, I just had the Kimber 2K11 in my hand. So the Kimber 2K11 is good enough for both, because realistically, IDPA, you don't need that ported in comped gun. The engagement distance in IDPA is so close, and I say close meaning like 15 yards and in is probably 95% of the targets in the match, to where like comps really at the deep end of the talent pool start to pay dividends at extreme distances like 25 yards and beyond, and there's not much of that in IDPA, and the tight shots aren't that tight, so like the accuracy requirement is you don't need like the super, you know, match fitted barrels or whatever. So generally any 2011, like this is set up so it could play in both games and it would be squared away. Similarly, the Staccato P4.5 would be another good option that can flex into both games, but also the Canik Rival S, the Walter PDP SF, S and SF, I'm getting mixed up. Both of these are fantastic guns that port both games, and I mean, any of the Carry Optics guns, like the polymer Carry Optics guns, your clocks, your M&P, stuff like that, they're all fine for going into both games. Now, if you're somebody who likes the high-end stuff and just really hate money, then like there are options for the XC and the Bull Armory guns where you can get barrel swaps. There is, I think it's DSC. DSC is doing barrels for everybody, where you can get another barrel, and so you could swap your barrel and your recoil spring, and you would have a sight block version of the XC, or a solid barrel version of the TAC Pro that you could use in both games. What I'm hearing reported is if you swap the magwell on the Bull Armory Blaze to the smaller TAC magwell, it will make the dimensions in the box as well. Haven't verified that personally, but I've gotten 2 emails at this point of people who have. The Masterpiece Arms DS9 IDPA compliant gun is another one that can work. So there are great options available to both. You just need a barrel that doesn't have any extra holes in it, and you're good to go between both. Said it at the beginning, I'll say it again. What's more important than the gun is you getting started competitive shooting. If you get started competitive shooting, you'll realize what you like and what you don't like a lot faster, and just get exposed to a lot more information that's not here on YouTube. And that's honestly what I would recommend the most, is just get out. If you're too shy to actually go and shoot, then just go observe a match, talk to the guys, help reset targets and stuff like that. You'll learn a ton. Do the new shooter brief, do all that stuff. But you've got USPSA, IDPA, and PCSL. All of those are kind of the big 3 sports. Steel Challenge is another great one, but it's kind of, people don't talk about it in the same context because it's a little bit different than action shooting, although it's a lot of fun. So just go to Practice Score, find a match that's near you, and just go out with what you got, and they'll help you get into the match, and you can just begin learning. That's really the best thing you can do. The guns really don't matter a whole heck of a lot, but I get asked all the time. So here's the video that helps you guys stop asking me what gun to get for competition. So there you go.